Welcome to everyone, and a very special welcome to our friends, the UNESCO ambassadors who are here with us for a few days, and also to our speakers here today. Now, we've got some empty spaces there, but after the presentations are finished, after the first hour, we will invite all of the UNESCO ambassadors to also come up on stage for a question and answer period. This event has been sponsored or organised by the Toowoomba Goodwill Committee, who have been working with UNESCO for a number of years now. And as you will see by the excellent coordination that is happening here today, that has all been done by Pure Lands Learning College. My name's Michael Cuthill and I'll be facilitating today's discussion. So why are we here today? We set out a number of objectives for this town hall dialogue. The first was to give you the UNESCO ambassadors the opportunity to hear of the diverse peace and harmony initiatives that have been undertaken in Toowoomba over the last 5 or 10 years in particular, largely driven, or at least partly driven, by the Toowoomba Goodwill Committee. The second objective of this dialogue was to strengthen shared understandings of peace and harmony across diverse Toowoomba cultures and religions, and to celebrate our achievements to date. And the third objective of the dialogue was to develop stronger relationships between the Toowoomba community and the UNESCO ambassadors and their countries. The program today, we have 9 speakers, possibly 10. We have one speaker who's running a bit late. They've been asked to provide a personal perspective or an organisational perspective drawing from their experience in Toowoomba of their peace and harmony initiatives, a snapshot from their organisation. So each of the speakers has been asked to just limit that to 5 minutes, which is very difficult for some of our speakers, I'm sure. I don't think I'd like to be given a 5-minute limit myself. But we will endeavour to keep this on time. We'll then move on to we're going to invite the UNESCO ambassadors up to join the speakers after those presentations, and we'll move on to a question and answer period where you'll have a chance to either ask a question of the speakers or of the UNESCO ambassadors about peace and harmony. So while we're listening to the presentations, if anything comes to mind, jot it down so you'll be ready to ask when the question and answer period comes up. So, opening our session today is Paul Carmody, and we will have the speakers' names if you want to follow up with any of them afterwards. Paul's an educator, a teacher-educator at the Amaroo Outdoor Education Centre, and we've also asked Paul if he could give an acknowledgement to country. So could you please welcome Paul?
Afternoon, folks. Can you all hear me okay? Fantastic. Righto. My name is Paul Carmody. I might need to put these sunnies on with those lights there. I've been invited today to discuss peace and harmony as it pertains in particular to my work and vocation. As it was introduced, I'm a teacher at Amaroo Environmental Education Centre, and I'm of Aboriginal, Indigenous heritage and Migaloo. Migaloo is a term we use for white Australian. Amaroo is part of Education Queensland. We're just north of Toowoomba there, about 20 clicks north of where we are today. The 2 pillars that underpin all our operations are Indigenous perspectives and environmental sustainability. Quite simply, in my opinion, peace and harmony exists through connection to country. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner there, Kim Walmsley's beautiful mural illustrates that magnificently. I saw Kim walk in before. Where are you, Kim? Hey, Kim. Can you wave up so we can see that beautiful mural's created there? Give Kim a round of applause. That is gorgeous. I also do like embarrassing Kim when I can. Now, first of all, I am not speaking for all of Aboriginal Australia, nor all of Toowoomba's mob. I am simply speaking for myself and share a little bit of what we do. So I grew up here in the Darling Downs, Moonee River. So my father's mob is Bundjalung country, so it's Northern Rivers of New South Wales there, Byron Bay Lismore Casino, and that's a great illustration as a map. That represents the Indigenous countries and language groups that were here approximately at first contact. So you're talking about 300 language groups, maybe 700 dialects. Australia is about 4,000 kilometres east to west and about 3,100 long. So you can imagine how different the languages were and indeed the cultures were across this great continent before digital communication. Languages help shape culture, environment shapes culture, and that map is a great illustration of that. I believe peace and harmony is shaped by listening to country, so listening to the wind, the rain, the sun, the flora and the fauna. Acknowledgement to country, it's a long introduction, but I shall move on to that now. So where we sit today is Jarowa country, and they're a smaller subgroup of the larger Waka Waka Nation, which extends up there north past Crow's Nest, and the Guyabal, more south to Toowoomba, heading down that way. Every program we do, we pay respects to elders for showing us the paths and providing us with strengths. So I can't do a welcome to country as such. I'm not a Jarowa Guyabal man, but I can certainly acknowledge their presence and their fantastic achievement in creating the spirituality which exists here today. You've all seen those maps, I'm sure. Aboriginal map on the left, black for country, red for earth, yellow for sun, the giver of life. One on the right, Torres Strait Islander, green for country, black for people. Blue for the ocean, they're a saltwater mob. White is the headdress called Dadi, which the men used to wear when they were at war. And the star represents the 5 major island groups that make up Torres Strait. White is peace. Righto, 2 continents up there. You might recognise some of these, some of you folks. On the left-hand side is Europe, and I like juxtaposing the two. Europe's quite a tiny little continent, fitting it in the bottom part of Australia. And for 200 years, we as Indigenous peoples were told how different it was. And a French person, not the same as Italian, if I told a German person to speak Greek, wouldn't go down too well. And yet, we've been told for 200 years that our little continent, we're all the same as Aboriginal people. Never sat very well with me. Some creatures up there. At Amaroo, we facilitate programs from kindergarten kids through to adult, underpinned again by Indigenous perspectives, environmental sustainability. We shared knowledge with over 7,000 students last year, and some of those creatures up there we can get down and dirty with. We love sharing knowledge in particular with young people, empowers them to make informed decisions for the betterment of not only the planet, but themselves. Some nice ones there. This is connection to country. The green ant on the top left-hand side, hands up in Toowoomba if you've been bitten by a green ant in your life. Yes, well-known creature in Toowoomba. Well, Murray's got bitten by them, but they also use them for tucker. When the wattle seeds drop under heat and smoke and right conditions, green ants gather those seeds, crush them up, and make a good bread-type product, damper, johnny cakes, etc. Australia's first peoples realised how important they were and were connected to the country really well. Top right-hand side is a bull ant. End up being bitten by a bull ant here, right? Even a nastier sting than the green ant. Murray people use those for artificial sutures. The ant is at least that big. It has massive mandibles. When they grab on, they don't let go. If Aboriginal people were in a position where they couldn't access certain medicines, ant would go on, body would come off, head would stay attached. They're a very, very aggressive creature. The emu you see there is nui. Jarowa called them nui. Might be 700 different words for emu in Australia, but Jarowa call them nui. Certain time of the year, the constellation's in the right spot, it tells Murray people, Aboriginal people, that it's time to gather eggs, gather the birds. And the humble grass tree, on the bottom left-hand side. It's often called a supermarket tree because you can get so much out of it. The resin or stickiness is a great adhesive, the stalk is a great fish spear, and you can make fire with parts of it. I'm wrapping up. In conclusion, I believe peace and harmony is achievable through respect. Respect to yourself, others, and place by connecting the country. That little image is a jingy jingy. It's a willy wagtail. Him and the wallaby, or gutterman, which is Jarawa for Roo, work together. Roo walks around, eats the grass, fertilises the grass, controls the grass. Jinky Jinky gets the parasites off. The gutterman also gets the insects that he stirs up. And the grass provides energy and a connection to country. Australia's first peoples understood, nurtured and controlled this philosophy for 60,000 years. They lived it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul. Next, we're going to have a mixture between a presentation and a welcome from the Executive Director of the Pure Land, Executive Vice President of the Pure Land Learning College, Venerable U Shin. If you could welcome him.
我们尊敬的所有宗教的代表以及我们联合国大使们诸位各界的贵宾这个大家下午好阿弥陀佛今天呢很高兴我们能够一起大家在这边互相交流互相认识其实这个是 我们今天讲就是多元文化的开始也就是我的老师净空老教授常讲的我们要彼此的互相的了解互相的沟通这样就能够消除一些误会能够化解一些冲突那我们才能够达到和谐安定达到世界的太平 那么今天呢我们共同生活在这个时代也就是大家都是地球人这个地球现在可以说跟以前不同了现在这个交通这么便利我们可以叫做地球村所以这个地球村呢大家紧密的生活在一起所以这个通就非常重要 譬如说我们的身体如果我们的血脉我们中医讲叫做血气如果能够畅通无阻这个人的身体就会很健康如果血气不通毛病就会出来的所以今天地球就像一个身体一样我们今天居住在地球上的人彼此之间一定要 常常往来也就是要沟通彼此的了解然后才能够互相尊重互相敬爱互助合作这样社会才能够安定世界能够和平人民能够得到幸福所以真正我们要对于不同的文化不同的学说不同的宗教都能够通达通达就可以平等 所以真正通达决定是用真诚清净平等慈悲的心绝对没有说我高你低你不如我这就是没有通所以所谓的通就是大家都平等就像一棵大树不同的国家不同的族群不同的宗教就像大树上的枝条一样枝条很多你深入的观察 这个几个枝条生在一个树干再往下的观察几个树干生在一个主干就是所谓的本所谓的根再下去就是同一个根所生的所以找到了根本那就沟通了那就畅通的就知道一切都是平等的所以每一片叶子都是整体的一部分决定都是平等这叫做我们所谓的 虚空法界一切众生都是自己都是一个生命的共同体所以可见一切的不平都是我们自己学习的深度不够认识的不够彻底广度不够才造成所以其实到最后问题都是自己的问题外面没有问题那么比如说我今天讲一个故事 这个故事是在中华传统文化里面是一个很有智慧的人他讲出来的故事。这个人叫纪晓岚那么我们都知道中国有一套叫《四库全书》，总共有1500册，全世界最大的一套丛书，这么厚，1500册里面都是古代的这个中文所以能够懂这个古文的人很少那么编辑这一本书的人叫纪晓岚是一个清朝的一个很有学问的人那么你想想他能够编这个书，那么他的学问他的智慧有多深那么他写了一本书专门就讲这个因缘果报的事情，里面有讲一个故事这个故事是这么说的就是有一个人这是一个老人家，他隔壁这个养了一头猪那么这一头猪呢对于这个老人家呢，一看到就很凶又吼又叫又要咬他所以一开始他非常的生气他觉得为什么这个猪对他的态度这么恶劣所以呢他心里面想了一个不好的念头他说我有一天我要呢出高价把这个猪买下来，然后把你宰掉吃掉后来呢他就想到我们今天讲叫说想通了觉悟了他想到什么呢？他想到这个猪为什么只会对我这么凶而对别人都不会那一定是我过去跟他结过恶缘，我过去曾经伤害过他所以今天才会对我这样后来呢他想这个世间没有解不开的冤结我们常说只要你有心，你真诚慈悲去化解去跟他呢这个化解这个冤结，一定可以把它解开后来他就用了很高的价钱就把这个猪买下来，但是买下来不是把它吃掉不是宰掉，而是把它送去放生，放到一个寺庙里面。结果呢有一天这个老人家到寺庙去烧香拜佛，结果一进门进到山门看到这一头猪这个猪被他放生以后很逍遥很自在在这个寺院里面这个很快乐的度过他的晚年嘛结果一看到这个老人来了，很高兴就冲过来就像我们家里养的宠物猫狗这么样的温驯对他呢就在这个脚上跟他很亲非常好。所以你想想看这一头猪为什么一开始对他很凶，现在变成这么温和就是他化解他沟通所以通在这个地方很重要。今天问题都不是在外面，是在我们自己我们自己的真正的能够敞开心怀跟大家能够和睦相处那么往往遇到有不如意的事情，那就是忏悔来跟大家沟通那么求这个化解那么这个是我们今天讲如何才能够真正做到多元文化，达到和睦相处、平等对待最重要的方法。这是我今天呢提出来跟大家报告、跟大家分享。谢谢。阿弥陀佛。
Thank you for your presentation, Venerable, and thank you for Pure Land's support in realising the UNESCO visit here. Our next speaker, who was a little unsure when he would be arriving, but I'm pleased to see he's slotted in right at the right time, is the Honourable Dr. John McVeigh, the Federal Member of Parliament for Groom. 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your kind welcome just now. And I've just been reminded I've got 5 minutes. I can assure you I won't need to take 5 minutes even, because I want to share just a couple of observations with all of you, and particularly Your Excellencies, our visiting UNESCO ambassadors. Before I do so, I certainly want to acknowledge all of the dignitaries that have been acknowledged already. Congratulate the Venerables and, of course, the Pure Land Learning College for facilitating this trip. I acknowledge His Worship the Mayor, Paul Antonio, my great friend and great friend of everyone in the Toowoomba region, our various religious leaders here in the room, and people from our community, one and all. Well, what an exciting couple of days for our city, for our region, to welcome the ambassadors here, the UNESCO ambassadors here, to focus on, I guess, what it means, this tremendous movement towards peace and harmony here in Toowoomba, as promoted as a model city of peace and harmony by our various religious leaders. It's been exciting, I must admit, quite an honour in fact to have worked just a little bit behind the scenes as a federal representative for this region with Mr Hanif and others from Pure Land College, and I'm sure Mr Hanif's in the room somewhere, no doubt. He's been a busy man in facilitating this trip and working through some of the protocols behind the scenes with our Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop. It's been exciting to meet many of the ambassadors here, and I guess to take the opportunity as we watch you watching us to again look at our community, look at our city, this time through your eyes. So I guess it's an opportunity for us all, locals, to humbly just have a bit of an introspective, I guess, assessment of our city and ourselves and our community. I was at the welcome at the airport yesterday for the ambassadors, and I, like the rest of you who were there, heard our mayor speak. And I was at a function here in our city last night, in fact in this very room, and like any of you who were here, I heard our mayor speak. And this morning for breakfast at Picnic Point, like the rest of you who were there, I heard our mayor speak. At lunchtime today, I heard our mayor speak, and I'm sure shortly we'll be hearing our mayor speak again. So I've heard a fair bit of the mayor in the last 24 hours, and I'm sure he will reiterate some of his messages about what it is that makes up our community. And I don't wish to take any of his words or to quote him. I'm sure he'll do that as our local leader once again. But can I just make a couple of reflections that he's touched on, and he will provide those details again for us today. I was asked by one of the ambassadors about the features of our community, what makes it up, and I was very pleased that I was asked at lunch today some of the secrets to our success, I guess, was how the question was pitched to me. And I just want to talk about three things, and these are by no means the only features in our community. And of course I keep in mind that we're not perfect and we have our struggles, and as a community we continue to deal with those. I want to talk very quickly about education, I want to talk very quickly about agriculture, and I want to talk very quickly about our law enforcement officers, our police service. Our police service, and I've been to a couple of functions with some of our police service representatives today, are not just there in our community to help pick up the pieces when things go wrong, or to pull us up should we be doing anything wrong, but they are so very proactive, they are so prominent in our community, as the ambassadors would have seen around the town today and last night. And I think that's a very important feature in our community, that they are held in very high regard and they help lead our community, not just police it in the traditional sense. I think that's a significant feature of our community. Education is certainly focused around, in many cases, our university, and our university in its now 50 years of existence in one form or another has brought so many cultures, so many visitors, so many new residents to our city. And that again has been an important feature in developing our awareness of the world, our multiculturalism, if you like, our ability, particularly led by our faith leaders, to work together and to pursue this dream of peace and harmony. And it happens in our schools as well. And I talk about, as a father, I talk about my own family. And I notice John Minns here, his family went to school with mine, where our children not only study, in our case, in a private school, the religious instruction and our tradition, but the study of religion, the great religions of the world, and our children being educated about that, I think, is a tremendous thing. And lastly, agriculture, which is our mainstay, our main industry over so many years. We're an exporting region. Our grain industry is exported around the world, to the Middle East, to Asia, and so often that industry has brought so many cultures to our city. Just a couple of observations, a couple of characteristics of our region I wanted to share with you. We're not perfect, we continue to strive, but it is a wonderful place to live, and we are so fortunate and blessed to have the UNESCO ambassadors visiting us at the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. And we are indeed lucky as a community to have two political leaders such as John and our next speaker, Councillor Paul Antonio, the Toowoomba Mayor, supporting the sorts of initiatives that we're talking about today. And John was a little bit shy about the behind-the-scenes efforts. He's put in a very strong effort to make sure that this visit went ahead, along with the Toowoomba City Council, Regional Council. So could I ask you to welcome Councillor Paul Antonio, please?
Thank you very much, Michael. And can I begin, ladies and gentlemen, by recognising the traditional owners of the land. Thank you for your presentation, Paul. The Jarrawa and the Gibel people, and can I pay my respects to their elders, past and present. Can I, of course, recognise my good friend and long-time friend, John McVeigh. I knew him before he was a doctor, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, I knew him when he was a councillor. Then he became a member of the State Parliament, and now, of course, he's doing a wonderful job for this region as a member of our federal Parliament. And I thank you very much for that, John. To all those who've been recognised, but particularly to the Venerables from Pure Land, thank you very much for being part of our community, and thank you very much for what you have done for this community over a long period of time. There's plenty of things that I could tell you. I haven't got time today, but ladies and gentlemen, they've done an amazing job since they've been in this community. And whilst there needs to be credit given in many areas, much of the credit for where Toowoomba is today in terms of its vision to be a city of peace and harmony certainly emanates from this group, who we're very proud of. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, during the Harmony Day celebrations together this morning, we stood as a community, and we were very much on message. And that message is everybody belongs. Whilst Council plays a leadership role in our community ensuring that everybody can belong, there are many other things that happen as well. We create facilities. We undertake initiatives where people can connect, where we can share friendships, and we can reflect. Our parks, our libraries, our sporting and recreational facilities all foster social interactions. They foster friendship, and they foster, what is importantly, a sense of community. My vision for the future of this Toowoomba continues that we will do our part to support the refugees who find themselves in difficult circumstances. I said on national TV 18 months ago that we will do our part in becoming a refugee welcome area, and we continue to do that. We continue to embrace difference as we live together in harmony through acceptance, through mutual respect and through compassion. Toowoomba's growing population comes from more than 118 different cultural backgrounds, with more than 10% of those living in Toowoomba now having been born overseas. Linguistically, we speak more than 100 different languages and practice many faiths. Our welcoming spirit was recognised in June 2013, where I had the good fortune to lead the Toowoomba Regional Council to become the third local government area in Queensland to become a refugee welcome zone. This declaration recognises our commitment to upholding human rights of refugees. It demonstrates our passion for those refugees. It demonstrates us enhancing cultural and religious diversity within our community. We also partner with the Queensland Government through local area multicultural partnerships program to promote social cohesion within our region. People are happy when they feel socially collected within the community and when they feel like they do belong. Last year, Council invested in more than 100 engagement opportunities to support our culturally and linguistically diverse communities. Just to mention one, our Languages and Cultural Festival, 17,000 people attend. Our support for events like that tells people within our community that we do value diversity, that we value their contribution, and importantly, it tells them that they belong. As one of the largest employers in the region, Toowoomba Regional Council has a multicultural policy and promotes cultural awareness training for our staff. We also offer English language programs and offer access to translating and interpreter services. The foundations of an inclusive model city of peace and harmony are built on the values of understanding, of mutual respect, and we have for each other, that we have for each other's differences and cultures. Can I repeat what John, my good friend John, has said in respect to the visit of the ambassadors? It is an honour. I hope you enjoy your trip here, but for us as a community within regional Australia, one of the regional capitals in Australia, with an area with such a cultural diversity, with such economic vibrancy, it is so special for us to have each and every one of you here today. Can I thank you so much for your visit here? A round of applause, please. As a region, we might come from all over Australia, we might come from all over the world, but we have one thing in common. We love where we live, we love living together, and we know we can achieve amazing things when we continue to go on this journey of working together. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Paul. I'm sure that you know that presentation off by heart now.
I'll change it.
Our next presenter is Bishop Cameron Venables, the Anglican Bishop for the Western Region. He's also the chair of the Toowoomba Interfaith Working Group, and could you please welcome him?
Thank you, Michael, and good afternoon, friends. Thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts this afternoon. I begin by affirming that it is a great honour to be here. When I say this, I do not mean in a literal sense, here in the Armitage Centre on a Friday afternoon, but rather here in Toowoomba at this time in its history. Unlike the previous speakers, the Honourable John McVeigh and Mayor Paul Antonio, who were born and raised on the Darling Downs, I'm relatively new to the area. I've only lived here for 2.5 years, so in many ways I'm still arriving. However, I know that I'm arriving in and becoming increasingly part of a growing, dynamic and culturally diverse community. As a Christian leader, I'm very conscious that I've come into a community that has at least 3 very well-developed faith networks, and it's been a blessing to be welcomed into each of them. The Christian Leaders Network, known as the CLN, brings together for 2 hours each week between 60 and 80 pastors and ministers from largely Protestant denominations. Discussing this with church leaders in other cities, in other parts of Australia, this is pretty unique. To have such a developed sense of commitment to ministry, mission and mutual support from such a percentage of church leaders in a city. Easterfest, which was until 2 years ago the largest Christian music festival in Australia, came from this network. There's also a strong commitment between the heads of Anglican, Catholic, Lutheran and Uniting churches, often referred to as mainline churches, who meet less regularly but work collaboratively in a number of areas across a broad geography. An outstanding example of this is the ecumenical agreement in pastoral care provision, training and supervision that's been running over the last 23 years and provides pastoral care in 8 hospitals. The third network brings together leaders and representatives from different faiths. It's called the Toowoomba Interfaith Working Group, or TIWG. I look forward to introducing different members of the group and the work of the group in tomorrow afternoon's presentation. In many ways, this working group emerged after the Goodwill Committee had been working together for 3 years, and we will hear something of the Goodwill Committee's role a little bit later from Jonathan. Members of the working group meet together once a month for discussion, planning and prayer. We respect one another and seek to learn from each other. We recognise that in each of our faiths there is complexity and difference and sometimes conflict. And even between our faith communities there is complexity and difference and even conflict. But we share a common vision of a just and peaceful society. It's still early days, but we recognise that there is a great openness and commitment to work together between faith leaders and faith communities, between the leadership of government and business, and between the leadership of educational institutions. Honourable Ambassadors, I hope you enjoy your time here. I know sometimes when you're in Paris, you might look up to a grey sky and wonder where the stars are. While you're here, please take the time to look at the stars, because our skies are generally clear. And at the moment, the Southern Cross is particularly clear, a constellation that enables navigators on the sea and on the land to find true south and to travel safely. In our complex world, so much of our world's population and so many in our Toowoomba community look to religion for guidance in their journeys of life and faith. They help individuals and communities recognise what they have in common through education and shared work together, and developing mutual respect in spite of difference. These are key areas of work for us in the journey ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Cameron. And I should say the last time I saw Bishop Cameron was at a Pure Lands dinner where he was wearing a wonderful tie-dyed shirt. In keeping with the diversity of presentations today, our next speaker is Joy Mingay, who's the President of the Toowoomba Chamber of Commerce. I think Joy and the Chamber and its previous President, Andrew Weidland, have been amazingly strong supporters for the Toowoomba as a model city of peace and harmony. So if you could welcome Joy, please.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, honoured guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen. What an honour and privilege it is to be here this afternoon addressing our esteemed visitors on behalf of the business community in Toowoomba. The Toowoomba Chamber of Commerce is the largest regional chamber in Australia and one of the oldest, established in 1899. We currently have over 550 members who represent a range of businesses, from micro businesses with one person operating out of their home to major businesses such as Wagner's, Heritage Bank, Grand Central Shopping Centre and many more. Our heartland, however, is small business. Our role is to advocate on their behalf at all levels of government, assist them with training, find opportunities for them to network with other businesses and look for opportunities for them to grow their business. I've owned and operated a business in Toowoomba for over 10 years, and there is nowhere else I'd rather be. This is a community that truly supports one another. We're a not-for-profit business, as magnificent as Lifeline could be, wins the Business of the Year award at the Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards. It is a business community where the work of an organisation like Lifeline that works with the most vulnerable in our community is not only supported in its work by local business, but applauded for it. In fact, Chamber has partnered with Lifeline over the past 12 months to deliver workshops for employers to help them support employees struggling with mental illness. These workshops aim to give employers the tools to help them understand the problems faced by those staff who may be experiencing mental illness themselves or in their home, and supporting them to get the help they need. Last year, Chamber hosted Dame Quinton Bryce, and she delivered an update on her committee's report, Not Now, Not Ever, which addressed domestic and family violence. You may wonder why Chamber is involved in the domestic violence campaign. But from a business point of view, when an employee is living with domestic violence, there are real costs and negative impacts in the workplace. If no preventative action is taken, the cost to the Australian economy of domestic violence is projected to rise to over $9 billion. $235 million of this will be borne by employers. So this is very much a business community problem, and one I'm proud to say is being addressed by my chamber and adopted and accepted by my fellow business leaders. As you will have all seen on your visit to our beautiful city, there is so much happening here. The Second Range crossing, a magnificent new airport built by our local and legendary Wagner family, the Grand Central Shopping Centre complex, and a myriad of smaller projects throughout the city, far too numerous to mention. We truly are a city and a region on the move. As the Toowoomba Regional Council's motto states, rich traditions, bold ambitions. That, to me, sums up our business community. At Chamber, we recognise the iconic traditional business success stories with a Hall of Fame award each year, which recognises those businesses who represent the very, very best in our community. They're easily recognisable, often simply just by their name: Cracker Print, Taylor's Removals, Wagner's, Heritage Bank. But they all demonstrate the same values: extraordinary and long-term success, ethics, morality, integrity in all their dealings, and a demonstrated outstanding contribution to human betterment and to the community in general by their exemplary human, civic, educational and philanthropic activities. The hardest decision my board has is choosing a business each year from such a rich field of contenders in this community. So as you can see, these values are intrinsic in the very fabric of the business community. To be recognised by your peers as successful in this community, it is not just enough to demonstrate financial success. You will only truly be acknowledged if your commitment to the community is just as apparent. As you can tell, I'm enormously proud of the business community I have the honour of representing today, not only because of these lofty ideals, but because I have seen the heart of the business community in action when it really mattered. This morning at breakfast, our MC, John Minns, referred to the tragic floods of January 2011, a natural disaster that none of us ever dreamed possible in a city on top of a mountain. But in the days after the floods, when there was no telecommunication and a command post was established at City Hall with our wonderful emergency services and police working 24-hour shifts, the board of the Chamber of Commerce walked the streets along with many other volunteers, checking on businesses to see if they needed help. As I ventured into each business with mud soaking my shoes and the high water mark in many businesses reaching far above my head, and listened to stories of how people had lost everything in their buildings, they were all so thankful that they and their staff were safe. But the most powerful lesson I learned that day was that these wonderful people had one common message. Thank you, Joy, for checking on me, but would you mind just going next door and checking on Jack or Tom or Mary? I'm really worried about how they're coping. Without exception, their overarching concern was for their fellow business colleagues, some of whom were actually competitors. But all of them put aside their own tragedy, their own loss, to worry about their neighbour. I came away that day very humbled, and I knew then, as I know now, this is a community where I want to live, where I want to work, and a community I'm proud to be part of. A community that will always look out for those who need help, a hand up, an encouraging word, or greater still, a chance. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, This business community and this region welcomes you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joy. There's already been mention of the wonderful education infrastructure that we have in this city and the important part it plays in giving us just a wonderful life here. Our next speaker is Kathleen Hannant. Kathleen's the head of the International Studies at Centenary Heights State High School, and you're now going to hear some of the wonderful work that happens there. So could you welcome Kathleen, please?
Firstly, I would like to say thank you for the invitation and to acknowledge that I'm here on the behalf of our principal, Marianne Walsh, who unfortunately could not be here this afternoon. And I know that for her and for the rest of the staff of our school, the tenets of harmony and peace are very important in our school's culture. Sometimes we talk about schools as being separate to real life, and we talk about preparing students for real life. But I think we have to acknowledge that what does happen in schools is very real. And whilst we might be preparing students for the future, our school is a real reflection of the diversity of not only Toowoomba but Australia. So in our school we have 1,600 students. In 15 years, that's almost doubled in size. We have students who come from 57 different nationalities, speaking 33 different languages. We have students who, at our Toowoomba Flexi School, come from quite significant social and economic disadvantage. The one thing that we have to be conscious of is that as a school, we cannot exist by ourselves. We are part of the broader community. So every student who comes into our school must find their place. For a number of our students who are newly arrived, it is paramount that school becomes a safe place, a place where they can explore, where they can develop skills, and they can do that in an environment that allows them to take risks. So for our students, the key thing is that we do things in our actions. We can have a curriculum that acknowledges the diversity of different countries. We can have inclusive practices in our policies, as all schools are required to do, but it's our actions that are the most important thing. So over time in our school, to acknowledge the diversity of students, we have done things like increase our leadership positions. So we now have cross-cultural captains in our school. We have Indigenous captains. We acknowledge diversity through making sure that we celebrate important events in the community, but doing it in our school context. We celebrate things like International Women's Day. We celebrate NAIDOC Week. Our students are having a Harmony Week celebrations in the last week of term because it fits in better with exam blocks, particularly for senior students. So since the beginning of the year, our students who like to showcase and celebrate their cultures have been practicing their dances, ready to perform on our Harmony Day parade. The other thing that I wish to speak about is some of the other practices that we do in our school. For example, acknowledging that students in their diversity of backgrounds, a simple thing like eating a meal is important. So we recognise that for some of our students, they like to be able to bring a meal to eat in the middle of the day that they can heat up. So with funds, we put that into an international kitchen, and our international students said we would like to open that up to the Year 12s as well, so that it is not just something that benefits one group, it's something that benefits all students. So the important thing for us is making sure that students find a place. And they find a place whether they're newly arrived or whether they have been in Australia for many years. And probably sometimes in our community, whilst there is diversity around us in the room, as a community member, I can be very insular. I can choose to be part of different groups or I can stand back. In a classroom, you can't do that. The person you sit beside might come from a very different background to your own, have very different experiences. The groups that you mix in, whether that's in the classroom or outside the classroom, are very diverse. So as a school, we must recognise the importance of what we're trying to do with students. And the final thing I'd probably like to say is that we are part of the community. We can't exist on our own. So for us, our partnerships with the community are very important. At our Flexi School, where we've got about 80 students, and that is away from our main campus, our partnerships with TomNet, the Older Men's Network, and Lifeline really give life to that school. It wouldn't exist without them. Partnerships with Rotary, partnerships with Hume Ridge Church, who bring a working bee of volunteers to our school every term to help clean it up, to make it nice for students. Our partnerships with Pure Land Learning College to keep reinforcing for students that our society is diverse, and if we are part of it, then our lives are enriched because of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen, and special thanks for coming in at short notice in place of Marianne. And you did an excellent job filling in for her, thank you. You may have heard the name Derek Tuffield mentioned in several earlier presentations. Derek is the CEO of Lifeline Darling Downs, and he's our next speaker. And I guess anybody working in the community area in Toowoomba would know Derek and the work that he does. So could you give him a big welcome, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a great honour to be here today. It's not every day that UNESCO comes to Toowoomba, and we welcome, as many of the speakers have today. May I also acknowledge, please, our traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Jawa and Gadigal people, acknowledge their elders, past, present and future, and the other nations that are here with us here today. Look, my presentation will be slightly different because I'm a bit of a literal reader. I read things very literally. So hopefully you enjoy what I have to say today. So as has been said, I am Derek Tuffield, as there is Braveheart, William Wallace. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Lifeline Darling Downs in South West Queensland. And in August this year, I will celebrate 30 years with Lifeline and 17 years as the Chief Executive Officer. Thank you. The reason why I shared that was literally it said, talk about yourself. So I just wanted to make that clear. Lifeline was originally founded in Australia in 1963. And at that time, you probably would remember that the telephone was a fairly new service in Australia. I still remember being at my parents' house, having the only telephone in the street and all the neighbours coming over to borrow the telephone to take calls, and it actually was a good way of interacting with your neighbours next door. But Lifeline, the late Reverend Dr. Alan Walker realised that the telephone was a great instrument for connecting for people in crisis. And so he came up with the idea of creating Lifeline in 1963 in Parramatta. So yesterday, in actual fact, Lifeline nationally celebrated 54 years of service, with 41 centres operating nationally in Australia, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, answering over 750,000 calls in 2016. So we are a crisis support line, and most people know that because you'll see us when natural disasters and that occur, often it says give Lifeline a call. So for me personally, I've lived in this beautiful city of Toowoomba since September of 1980. I was living on the Gold Coast at the time, 26 degrees, sunshine, bikinis, having a great life. Came to Toowoomba, it was -2. It was foggy. I thought, what has happened? It was raining. The weather was much colder back in the 1980s. but I quickly learned to love the city that we operate and I live in today. And for me, Toowoomba is home. I think I'm still becoming a local at the same time, and I hope in the next few years I will be. Toowoomba is a very special place, and it has changed a lot since 1980. Our city has witnessed many successes, many challenges over the past 37 years. The improvements in our roads, the improvements in our telecommunications has meant that Toowoomba is no longer a large country town. It's a vibrant community where free speech does exist, but also where not everyone will agree with the decisions or the public statements that are actually made. And I wish to acknowledge my colleagues here today from the Social Justice. Mark, welcome today. In January 2011, our community was certainly challenged with the inland flood that Joy spoke about here in Toowoomba. It affected Grantham, Murphy's Creek, Gatton, look, about 16 different locations across our region. But in Toowoomba, we did have certainly what some people would term a mini inland tsunami at Grantham. That wall of water that hit Grantham was 7 metres tall. That's 21 feet. So certainly our region at that stage was being well and truly challenged. Lifeline's role during the natural disaster is called community recovery. It's about helping residents to regain some form of normality in their lives as quickly and as soon as possible. My role is to work with the Department of Communities, Queensland Health and many other organisations, obviously Toowoomba Regional Council, Red Cross, to coordinate the community recovery teams going into the 16 flood-affected regions that we operate. Personal stress levels are normally extreme high in these times of natural disaster, and for many people who have ever been directly affected by a natural disaster or feel the need, have been affected by a natural disaster or feel they need help in some way during a natural disaster. 6 years on, the floods are still proving counselling and support to individuals is required who have not fully recovered from the devastating impact of the 2011 floods. Can I say a couple of things quickly? I just want to talk about the Intergenerational Mentoring Hub. Education for our young people is paramount at the moment. Our young people are the jewels of our nation. They are the leaders of our country going forward. The Intergenerational Mentoring Hub was one of the true community projects that entailed organisations like the National Australia Bank, Toowoomba Regional Council, University of Southern Queensland, the Rotary Club at Toowoomba South, Lifeline Darling Down, Tomnet, East Creek Community Centre and Centenary Heights State High School. It is a true experience of how communities coming together can create a wonderful structure that provides a mentoring hub for our people going forward. My hair was a lot darker when that project started. It doesn't come without challenges, but its long-term benefits will be there way after I have passed. It's a wonderful example of how a community like Toowoomba comes together, works together, and supports its people going forward. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Derek. And you provide an intro for the next speaker, because our next speaker is one of the amazing young women that we have in Toowoomba. She keeps coming back, and we hope that she will return after she's finished her studies down in Brisbane. But I'd like you to welcome Sophie Ryan, who's a Youth Ambassador to Toowoomba.
Franklin Roosevelt once said that we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. Good afternoon, my name is Sophie, and it's an absolute honour to have the opportunity to say a few brief words on behalf of the youth of this region. By way of background of myself, I grew up in Toowoomba, I went to school in Toowoomba, but I don't think it's been until I've been required to move to Brisbane for university that I've fully come to grasp just how special the Toowoomba region is. At university, I'm studying a dual arts law program, and I major in peace and conflict studies and studies in religion. I'm fascinated by the role that faith, culture, and social norms more broadly play in perpetuating, but more importantly, in resolving conflict. I'm also deeply passionate about the role youth can play in processes of peace. Therefore, it's hardly surprising that for nearly 5 years now, I've been quite involved with the Multi-Faith Multicultural Centre, and more specifically the Youth Committee here in Toowoomba, in affecting Toowoomba as a model city of peace and harmony. The young people of Toowoomba, as Derek rightly pointed out, are quite frankly the future of Toowoomba. And I feel that I can say with confidence that the future of Toowoomba is in very good hands. This morning I joined many of you at the community breakfast at Picnic Point, and at the end of that breakfast I had the opportunity to have a discussion with some of the girls who are currently at the school I went to for secondary schooling in Toowoomba. And I asked them what they think of multiculturalism in Toowoomba. And I think what they said warrants a departure from the words that I had prepared to convey to you quite literally what the youth of today think of Toowoomba. Now, 2 of the girls are of Sudanese heritage, and they commented to me how before living in Toowoomba, they lived in a small country town in Western Queensland. And there they said the fact that they were Sudanese, the colour of their skin, made a difference in the way that people treated them. Toowoomba, by contrast, they said, provided a place where difference was accepted, where they could go to school and difference in colour and in creed was the norm, and if anything, celebrated. I then asked them what they see their role as the future of Toowoomba to be in fostering multiculturalism here. And what they said made me think that it really is our youth that is a weapon of change in this world. Diversity for the youth of today is a strength rather than a weakness. Young people, they said, and I'll use their words for this, are more accepting than old people. I asked why they thought that, and their response was that our generation, the young people of our community, have grown up surrounded by people of different colours, different faiths, different cultures. And this means that because of that, they know, and they've never had any reason to doubt the fact that they are united by their common humanity. They're all, in essence, humans. And therefore, despite living in a world that seems to be doing its very best to divide people based on differences rather than on similarities, these girls reminded me not to underestimate the investment that we have made in the young people of our community. And I think they reminded me as well that how important it is not to fall into the trap of underestimating our youth and their ability to focus on what brings us together rather than what sets us apart. Now, I know that we still have a long way to go as a community until we really are that model city of peace and harmony. However, I know that I'm also not the only one who thinks so positively of our region, and I'm not the only youth that thinks this as well. We only need to look to the dozens and dozens of posters that are up on the wall over here that over the last few weeks have been made by students at the primary schools within the Toowoomba region. And they were tasked, when making these posters, with the task of depicting why they love Toowoomba. You only need to look at the bright colours, the messages of peace and hope on these posters to see what they think of their region. And by way of a further conversation as to what young people think of the Toowoomba region, we have a brief video that we'll show you now to conclude my remarks from the youth of Toowoomba. Thank you.
The thing I like about Toowoomba is it's very cultural, it's very diverse. It's like a small community town, but like it's really supportive, and like people get around together and like we get involved in a lot of things. Toowoomba a multicultural place? We have many different cultures in Toowoomba. We have so many different restaurants that serve different cuisines from around the world. We celebrate our different cultures at festivals and our many parks. And just for a regional centre, Toowoomba is a very multicultural and diverse place, and we're a very welcoming community.
I've been living in Toowoomba for 3 years, and I think it's a very good place to be and to live. People around this city and this town and inside the town are friendly. People are helpful to each other and welcoming.
Enter the Toowoomba, you will feel the atmosphere different from the outside other place. And when you feel very tiring, when you just drive into Toowoomba, you feel the difference. And when you get in touch with the people, most people smile at you, and the people are very gentle. Everyone are willing to help you. That's how I feel. Toowoomba is a wonderful place and comfortable place to stay.
And could I just ask you to put your hands together again for Sophie and thank her for her presentation. Now, our final presentation today is perhaps appropriate that's been handed to Reverend Jonathan Inkpen. Jonathan was up until very recently, the chair of the Toowoomba Goodwill Committee, and his leadership helped bring about the relationship between Toowoomba and UNESCO, and indeed the visit here. So could you please welcome Jonathan?
Thank you, everybody. There's a Persian saying I learnt this week: to really love someone, it is necessary to do at least one of three things: either to eat with them, or travel with them, or marry them. The heart of the Goodwill Committee has been a lot of eating and travelling of various kinds, and you have experienced that yourselves too, Your Excellencies. Even if our marrying one another has been a little bit more metaphorical, we have definitely developed a vital depth of relationship, and that's been reflected, I think, in those who've already spoken, because relationship, I think, is the core to this business of peace and harmony. Because we live in a world in which, and in this country, marriage is a bit of a political football. I don't want to comment on that, but I think divorce is the real issue in our world as a whole. The divorce of the rich from the poor, the divorce of certain metropolitan people from certain regional and rural people, the divorce of rural and regional people from understanding metropolitan issues, the divorce from facts and truth and scientific reality, the divorce of all kinds of things, the divorce of the privileged from minorities, often women, and so on. And that can only be restored by relationship, and it's one of the biggest challenges I think we have. And I speak in saying so as an English European Australian who is deeply sorrowful for the way in which the country of my birth is headed in terms of Europe and of those painfully constructed relationships that can easily unwind unless we rebuild relationships in a new way. So it's the challenge of how we move forward in relationships that I really want to offer to you. The Goodwill Committee was formed as a coordinating hub to enable these relationships. It covers the key sectors of community life from which representatives have been drawn, the kinds of representatives and sectors that you've heard from today. Indigenous people, local government, business, media, police, community development groups, youth, faith groups. Because as a major theme of the committee says, everyone matters. I think that goes even further than everyone belongs, because it's about value and the gifts of every single person which need to be valued and utilised. Our logo is a bunya tree in which different fruits grow, and that's because the Bunya Festival is such an ancient gathering of peace and harmony, and that's a story that the first peoples of this land can share with you. And it's about the tree, as we have also heard, as a profound spiritual reality and metaphor for us in terms of relationships. Toowoomba Goodwill Committee, in short, seeks to do three things. Firstly, to develop civil society, and I think that's the core of building a peaceful and even a reconciling community in many places in the world. Even if the society has fallen apart in some ways, if we can rebuild that civil society, then we can be strong. Secondly, it seeks to auspice projects. And thirdly, to link and signpost people to others. So, firstly, we have done things like develop interfaith and other keynote events in places like the church that I had responsibility for, St. Luke's, here in the city, where we built, we celebrated a lot of different things, the announcement of the Refugees Welcome Zone, the International Day of Peace, Harmony Day, we have been involved in as well. And the Goodwill Committee has sought to develop those and to develop good relationships with media, to develop those kind of civil society networks, to develop symbols and shared affirmations and art. And we're hoping to develop the UNESCO Creative Cities Partnership. That's something we're really keen to look in developing, because we think we have a lot to offer and a lot to gain through that way of building civil society through our society, through our world. And then thirdly, we seek to act as a coordinating and connecting tool. What happens when there's a crisis, like when someone burns the mosque, or when there's an event overseas, because we cannot protect ourselves in Toowoomba from what happens overseas and elsewhere, when people attack somewhere in Sydney, for instance, in the terrible attack in the chocolate cafe in the centre of Sydney. What do we do? Does that divide us, or can we come together? Only if we have met, eaten, travelled, and in some sense married one another, can we come together instantly or pretty soon afterwards to stand up together. And with the help and leadership of our political leaders, we have therefore been able to enable commemorations and acts of memorials and ways in which we can heal the pain that people feel across the world, whether it's an earthquake in Nepal or terrible tragedies in Paris or elsewhere. So what about the future? How do we develop relationship and avoid divorce? Well, I think that's something the Goodwill Committee are looking at, because we realise we cannot be fixed. And I guess that's the challenge I see in Europe with the European community, or with the United Nations, or with NATO. I think Donald Trump, in a way, is a huge question mark for the world to say, how do you want to relate together? We have all these kind of strains and stresses. And so the Goodwill Committee and our work cannot rest on its laurels. We have to look at new ways to be together. So we are exploring how we might be incorporated, how we might take on specific projects like the UNESCO Creative Cities Partnerships, and to adjust our strategies according to the needs of the present and the future. In which respect, it's perhaps timely that I stand down as a chair myself. I have moved recently, very recently, to Brisbane, and coming back up here, I realise how much I've lost and how much, well, not far away, but how much of the strength of this community and how much it has given to me. But I think it's right for me to move on as someone who is a part of the faith community from the leadership of the Goodwill Community, because it needs to be circulated across the whole community so that every single person sector can use its gifts. Because in our secular, multi-religious nation in Australia, no one sector, I think, should be more important than any other. Faith involvement is vital to our model city, and it is the greatest pleasure to me that we have been able to create, as one of our projects through the Goodwill Committee, a thriving interfaith community of which Your Excellencies will hear more tomorrow. But there are many ways in which it can be developed. And so it's wonderful to pass the baton on to Mark Cecil, who was with me in Paris not so long ago, with whom I have eaten and travelled in many ways, including to Paris and UNESCO, and with whom, with others, we share this deep and common commitment, even though we might not call it a marriage. I guess the question is for us all, how do we live together in sacred relationship with one another and with our land? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Jonathan, and thank you for all the work that you put in up here in Toowoomba while you were here, and we hope we see more of you. We've come to the end of our presentations, and you've been very patient, and I hope you've been thinking of some questions. How often do you get the chance to question UNESCO ambassadors, the mayor of your city, some of the community leaders? So if you want to take that opportunity, please make sure that you've got a question ready. We're going to have a 2-minute changeover here. First of all, I'm going to invite the UNESCO ambassadors to come and take a seat up here so that you can see the audience and the audience can see them. So if you would all like to move up and please take a seat up here. I'd invite everyone at their tables, without causing too much disruption, to stand up for 2 minutes, have a stretch. Now, to start this next session, first of all, I've invited Her Excellency Dr. Samira Mohammed Musa Al Musa, who is the ambassador to UNESCO from Oman, to thank the presenters and to give a very short UNESCO response to some of the topics that have been discussed today around peace and harmony. So if you could please welcome her.
Well, it's good afternoon or good evening, you know. I just wanted to thank all the presenters for their wonderful speeches and presentation that gave us an outlook of what Toowoomba is all about and what are you planning to do for peace and harmony. Actually, for us, UNESCO, I think it's the right place that promotes peace and stability. From its beginning, it worked toward peace, as we have our motto, or our thing is saying that UNESCO is the place where, or actually the minds of the people is the place where war starts, and it's in the minds of the humans that we need to start peace. So UNESCO is the right place for peace and stability, as I said. UNESCO should go toward and looking for futures, and one of the very important programs that we have, and I think we saw it today at the school that we were this morning at the Darling Heights Primary School, it's the global citizenship. We believe that we need to think globally, but act locally. And I think this is what we've seen here in Toowoomba, that your values are based on global issues, based on universal values, respect, dignity for human being, but you're acting from your community. You're acting locally. You're accepting people from all over the world. You're teaching the children how to be responsible citizenship. I think this is what UNESCO is all about. It's how to be a responsible citizenship, to think of the world and not just think of your own community. We have to act and start with our communities, but we have to look toward the world, have to have universal values, which is based on mutual respect and understanding. So we are really happy to be here and to take your experience, and thank you very much for having us here. Thank you.
Thanks very much for those words, Your Excellency. The next session is really for you. If you have come across something that you want to pursue further, some comments that have been made, some examples that have been given, or something about UNESCO and the Toowoomba relationship that you'd like to understand more about. So we're opening the floor up to questions. Is there somebody who's brave? Yes, we're straight into it, so thank you very much. If you could direct your question to the panel or a particular person on the panel that you would like to address, and if you could be short and just give us a very clear question, that would be great.
Well, we're nearly end of the day anyway. My name is Shah Jahan Khan, and I'm part of the Islamic community here. I welcome the ambassadors and all the guests here in Toowoomba on behalf of the Muslim community. I just want to elaborate a little bit on what happened when the mosque was burned in Toowoomba twice. The first burning repair cost was borne by the churches of Toowoomba, not by the Muslims. So that's an example I want to find the ambassador, honorable ambassador, if there is any other example. There may be some, but very few. The second fire actually caused huge damage in the mosque. One of the few people who went to the mosque very early in the morning, the fire happened in the midnight, was the Catholic bishop, Jonathan Ipkin, who is here, the chair of the committee, Dr. Mark Copeland. They are not Muslims anyway. So this is the kind of response, spontaneous response that we saw. 2 days after the mosque was burned, there was a food festival pre-scheduled. It's supposed to be in the mosque, but the mosque was burned. We were looking for venue. We didn't ask for it. The Toowoomba Regional Council offered their park with the facilities that we can organize that event. University of Southern Queensland offered their recreation center free of charges. Because of the amenities, we choose the University of Southern Queensland. Now, the question is, the person who burned the fire, did he or she divide the Toowoomba community? Not sure. He is a loser. The Toowoomba community, over 4,000 members of the community joined the food festival 2 days after the mosque was burned. And I don't think you find that many places in the world. Finally, our last comment is, from Toowoomba for 2017, a small business championship award, a small business have been selected from Toowoomba. And that's a big success, I think. The finalist winner will be declared on the 1st of April. We hope that the finalist from Toowoomba will be the winner. Thank you very much.
I guess that was more of a comment than a question, but would anybody up here like to respond or provide something else about the burning of the mosque? It has been a centre point in positive responses in the Toowoomba community. We've talked about that enough? Okay, that's fine. Thank you. More questions?
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be on you all. My name is Ibrahim Malik. I'm from Ahmadiyya Muslim community. My question is to the panelists and to all the respected ambassadors. When we talk about the interfaith, we talk about the interfaith between the different religions. What are we doing in respect of when there is a differences that people within a religion not accepting another denomination of the same within that religion to be standing next to each other? So, and this is common in all the religions. So my question is that how we can cope with that. Thank you.
Okay, that was to the ambassadors. Would anybody like to comment on that question? The crux of the question was, how can we get people to stand side by side?
Sorry about that. Let me explain it more further. So there are different denominations within a same religion. Like in Islam, there are a lot of denominations within Islam. And this is true for the Christianity as well. So how we can cope with that we can sit together. And you know, when we talk about the interfaith, mostly we talk about the interfaith between Christianity and all the major religions. What are we doing and how we can cope that all the denominations of different religion within a religion can sit together?
Okay, well, I think that's a big question to address. Perhaps the example of the Toowoomba interfaith that Bishop Cameron, we have got one response here. That's great. Can I use this microphone?
It's something that in the United Kingdom we've seen over many years in Northern Ireland between the Protestant and the Catholic groups there. And colleagues of mine who work on this have found two things. The first is that the more that people interact, the more they know each other, the less that they're biased against each other. And the second is something that we've seen illustrated here very well this morning, which is that children who are schooled together understand one another much better. In Northern Ireland, there was a tradition of Catholic schools and Protestant schools being separate. People don't like being bused from one area to another, which was a solution that was tried in America many years ago. What my colleagues found was that if in one school, for example, you set up a fabulous science lab, and you allow the kids from the other school to go to that, they don't feel bussed, they feel privileged. And if in the other school you set up a brilliant library and you allow the kids to go to that, they feel privileged too. And when you meet people under conditions in which you feel that they're doing something for you, then it's much easier to create a harmonious society. And certainly in Northern Ireland, where this has now been going on for a while, we're not out of the woods, but we're in a far better place than we were 30 years ago. It's a slow business, but it works.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to comment on that?
Thank you. I was born in just outside of Belfast in Northern Ireland at a time when Catholics and Protestants were killing each other. And there's been a huge journey, I think, over the last 50 years, where it's now possible for Catholics and Protestants to worship together and to recognise the common ground of faith. And I think sometimes it's important. I mean, I really value what Jonathan shared in terms of the principles of sharing food together and sharing the journey together. I think sometimes we can recognise in different, from history, where we've seen the resolution of difference between denominations in different ways. Northern Ireland is one example. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I think, offers a really important way forward also in terms of a community that has been deeply divided and in which there's been profound conflict. I think we can learn from what has worked in history and apply them to particular situations for our own time, and to recognise that we're all in this together, that what happens in one particular faith and one particular area of conflict actually affects all of us. It's not their problem, it's our problem. So I think there are definitely examples that we can learn from the different faith traditions and from different contexts of conflict. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the key questions that came out of the International Peace Conference, UNESCO Paris, in September last year was how can we share what we have learnt in each of our communities so that we can learn from each other? And I think this is an excellent question which highlights how that sharing can actually be a learning experience for all of us. And Ambassador.
Thank you. For a minute, I'll forget UNESCO, and I'll give you an example from Oman. Actually, what happened, this is a true story, that I'm not going to mention the name of the country, but there were two couples from a country, an Arab country. One was a Shiite and one was a Sunnite. And when they came to Oman, somebody found them together at the same mosque. So they were asked, how come, you don't do that in your own country? So they said, we were put into shame because we came to this country and we saw them using different mosques. Shias are in the Sunnis mosque and also in Abadas. So we felt by example. And I think this is one of the things that people learn from others by examples. You don't have to tell others what to do, but you can start with yourself, and when they see you, then they follow, and the tension becomes less. And I think this is what happened when they came to Oman and they saw people from different sects praying at the same mosque next to each other with no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to add there? We've been doing a lot of work on community safety, and an evidence-based analogy for that relationship building. If you know your neighbours, you have less likelihood of having crime in your neighbourhood. Another question, please. I'll let the lady up the back. I think she had her hand up first. Is there a microphone down that end? There we go.
Thank you. My name is Zainab. I'm from Toowoomba. I have a question. Like, we love to put our hands together always and live in harmony. But when it comes to media, the media that will reflect bad and in a way or another spreading hatred in the community. How can we put our hands together to face this problem? I call it a problem because it is. Thank you very much.
Would anybody like to respond to the media question?
Thank you very much for your question. Well, as the mayor of this community, I live daily with things that I don't think are quite right in the media, and you may have noticed in the local paper just a couple of days ago, my head placed on another body on the front page, and it was talking about the things that happen, and I was heading overseas on all these junkets, and that's so far from the truth. Look, I had a good experience when I first was elected to the Toowoomba Council as Deputy Mayor, and we had that terrible divisive debate in Toowoomba around water. And I chose quite deliberately just to be positive. Talk positively about the good things, and you'll eventually overcome the bad things. Yes, there are some pretty ordinary people out there when it comes to their respect for the journey that this community is on, and I cop it, but I am not shifting. I remain positive, and I hope when the day comes when I leave the stage of public life that I'll be remembered for one thing, and that's being positive. There's not much you can do about those journalists who want a cheap front page, but there is a fair bit you can do yourself, that you and your friends can do, about being positive and making sure that you set an example to the community. And I really think it's the younger people. I was about to say something about the previous question, because late one evening I was watching ABC 24, which is pretty boring, but I did, in fact, see the former President of Ireland talking about the changes there's been in Ireland, and you've heard a couple of previous speakers talk about it. Well, when you want to really drill down, that change, that real change, came out of the young people working together and talking together, and you saw it with the school you went to today, the ambassadors. And look, I can say nothing other than it's a long journey, and you've just got to be positive.
Thanks, Paul. More questions. We had a gentleman there.
Thank you very much for welcoming me to ask the question. My question is direct to the youth ambassador or the mayor of the Toowoomba. You have said before you met the Sudanese young girls who said the parents or the elders of the Sudanese are not welcoming than the youngs. It is quite right that the older people who migrate from Sudan to here did not understand what is the culture of this country and did not have the global mind than the young kids. I myself, I went to high school here. I understand. I met with different people. I know English, and I can understand other cultures. My question is, what can you do Instead of you dealing with the young people and their parents are dragging them back, don't go with these people because they are the wrong people. You came back home here. If you don't want to listen to me, you can go by yourself. So you are now dealing with the kid, and the kids are dealing with the elders here. How can you bring the elders together so that they can understand the global ideas of this community, so that we united instead of the youth only to be united and the parents are not united? Thank you very much.
That was towards you, Sophie.
I should actually clarify to start with as well that when I was speaking about two particular Sudanese women from my old school, the further comment about that young people are more accepting than old people was actually made by other girls from the school. And that probably wasn't clear from my speech to start with. But you do raise a very important issue that I think we do see playing out in our community at the moment in particular. And that's because at the moment we have a lot of young people who are second generation in Australia, and therefore they're grappling with how they reconcile their identity as being born and growing up in Australia, but also their identity that they've inherited from their parents as well, and how they recognise and reconcile that clash between those two identities. And I think I had a conversation with a young woman, Yasmin Abdul-Majid, about this particular issue a few weeks ago, and her advice to young people in that situation was to not deviate from their beliefs and from what they see their role within the community to be. However, the flip side, I think, is that we need to spend more time with the elders within these communities to help them to understand these issues that their young people in their community are facing. And I think there's various initiatives within our community that are providing opportunities here. For instance, there's one community project that has enabled Afghani women to cook meals for members within this community and to meet and have conversations then with people within this community and to understand the difference between their thoughts and people who have grown up in Toowoomba. And I think it's engaging and providing space for more opportunities for elders within these communities, but also for their counterpart elders who have been born and raised in Toowoomba to engage in dialogue there and talk about what it means to raise young people today. But I think it is a very important issue, and I don't think we actually have an answer for it, and that's an important thing to recognise, that it's a work in progress.
Thank you, Sophie. You're number 4. So if we could go to the gentleman at the back. Yes. A lot of the questions that keep arising around peace and harmony relate to how. So we have a vision, and what, as I said, came out in Paris was the question of how do we build a community of peace and harmony. And these are very operational things that if we identify the questions, we can then start to address them so that we have effective responses in our communities, but in communities across the world. So.
First of all, good afternoon to all the panelists, and well done, really good talks today. My question goes out to all of you. I just want to know what's the one most important thing you guys believe that the youth of today and the young people can do to contribute to cultural and interfaith harmony in local communities as well as nationwide community as a community. Thank you.
So the question is, what is the one most important thing young people can do to contribute?
Very, very simple. Get involved. I think youth groups that, like Sophie, the regional councils, Young People's Alliance. I think church groups, volunteer, make your voice heard. Chamber of Commerce has a future leaders group of 18 to 30-year-olds who are our future in business. We welcome anyone to come along to those functions and events. and share, as a lot of other speakers have said, it's all about sharing our experiences and getting to know one another with greater understanding. I think Paul mentioned earlier about, diversity in trade and commerce. It's all of these are tools to help us understand one another. So my advice to any young person who comes to see me in my day job is, get out there, get involved and, be heard and find a mentor, find someone in your own circle that can help you open doors and introduce you to people. But come to the table. That's the most important thing. Don't stand back. Come to the table.
Thank you for that question, and thank you, Joy. I'll just pass this microphone.
I'm Tessu Kim Watson. It's a very good example, Korean married Australian. When I was studying at the primary school, all our textbooks, right end, it said, this book has been available by the help or assistance of UNESCO. And nobody told us who is UNESCO. And we used to think, he must be a very rich man somewhere, sending all these books to Korean children so we could study. And I am the very good product of that wonderful assistance. Sadly, we do know there are many countries, many schools, many children still struggle, not enough school books and notebooks and pencils. I'm wondering if UNESCO does still continue the wonderful work.
Who would like to respond on UNESCO's behalf there on the wonderful work that you do?
Thank you. As we are now representing the very rich man, UNESCO, we have to give the answer. The answer is not so easy to give because the UNESCO is not anymore a rich man that it used to be before, The UNESCO is going through a very deep financial crisis as an organization. But UNESCO tries to do the same work as it did when you were young. So now it's very much up to the member states and the contribution of member states if they really put education in the first place. And everybody says that. But if you look at the percentage in the budgets which are given to education, you will see that in some countries it is really minimal. So UNESCO in principle is doing the same thing. There are conferences, there are projects, there are even very concrete plans to do so in a very sophisticated way, and we are continuing in that. But the problem is that we are going through a very, very deep financial crisis. I don't want to enter now in details because we are going to that. But I'm sure that even the countries, the governments, are now aware of the fact that they should do what the UNESCO was doing all the time. So it's on the shoulder of governments, of member states of UNESCO, but you can be sure that within the limits of the possible, even the impossible, the UNESCO is trying to do the best. The problem is that these recent years, and we will perhaps speak about that afterwards, the UNESCO, and not only UNESCO, has been very much politicized and very much thrown away from what should be its own mandate. We are now trying to get back to that and to try to explain that really the work of UNESCO should be basically education, science and culture, and not politics. As all the world is getting politicized, the UNESCO is reflecting that as well. So there are difficulties, but I can say on behalf of all my colleagues here that we are really working and trying to not be perhaps the same rich man of once upon a time, but to do as a conscience of the world the same thing and to explain to the member states what is real at stake. At the stake is the future of our children. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and I think I could say that in Australia we also maybe need to look at our priorities and where our money actually goes. Building peace and harmony is a social and economic imperative. It is estimated that domestic violence costs Toowoomba $120 million a year. While we have perhaps the best city in Australia to live in, I think it was Gandhi who said that we judge the quality of our community by the way we treat those most in need. It's a great place to live, but we must make sure that we keep it a great place, and that's based in equity and respect. It is now 5 o'clock, and that means that even though the discussion could possibly go on for hours, we are required to wind it up now. I'd like you all to please thank our presenters and the ambassadors and their contributions here today. Thank you. I would like to thank all of you for your attendance and your involvement in the concept of peace and harmony. There are 3 people who are not on the stage and haven't really been identified today who have made this community dialogue possible, maybe more than anybody else. Andrew Wideland, and I don't know if Andrew's having a break today and doing some work. Mr. Hanif and Mei Ling. So even though you're not sure who they are, if you could give them all thanks. Once again, thank you to our UNESCO ambassadors and all of our presenters today, and good afternoon.